Okay, so this is the study guide for the final exam. Okay, so first up are two different ideas that come from social construction of parenting. Social construction of parenting just meaning that the culture defines what normal parenting is. So part of that is the maternal instinct and compulsory motherhood. Maternal instinct is the assumption that women are just born to be mothers. And compulsory motherhood is basically the social drive that the importance that women have within a culture is to be mothers, right? And this is starting to break down as a lot of people are delaying basically delaying having kids at all, or often not having kids even within a marriage, right? And again, it's how the culture is defining parenting. So social construction of childhood just means that parenting styles are going to vary depending on your social class. When it comes to reasons for low fertility and delayed childbearing, um, part of this is that people are marrying later, right? When it comes to the low fertility, um, people have a higher divorce rate, right? The majority of women are now working, and so, because families are now demanding two incomes just to survive. When it comes to delayed childbearing, this often has to do with increased age at first marriage and having a career before you have kids. When it comes to unmarried parenting, teens account for less than a quarter of all unwed births. Let's see. Sandwich generation is just the definition from your book. It's a group of people that are responsible for taking care of their children as well as caring for their aging parents. Hence the sandwich part. Same-sex parents, basically that kids that are raised by same-sex parents develop normally, even in regards to their sexuality, as normal as any other kid. When it comes to benefits of parenthood, there's a few different benefits that the book talks about, like the symbolic immortality of living on through another person. Often you get an enhanced status in the community. Children can positively affect your marriage, right? And they can give parents a sense of meaning or purpose. But it could go the other way, right? There's also cost of parenthood, right? So sometimes children don't return their parents' love, right? Or they're just troubled kids. Also, sometimes if you have to deal with your kids' negative personality traits, you're often worried about how they're going to develop or do in school. These kids can also negatively affect your marriage. That's the reality. When it comes to birth order, all I need you to know there is that female firstborn children tend to be more religious, more sexually conservative, and more accepting of traditional gender roles. When it comes to social class and life chances, something you notice through your own project is that the more financial resources you have, the better your family is going to be able to weather storms. When it comes to, let's see here, social support for parents, flex time is just a variable work schedule that's common in other countries that's shown to help dual earner families so that they don't have to choose between having kids and having a career. All right, chapter 11. So basically just that in our culture, we have much higher rates of violence that tend to be promoted by the society itself, even the family. So this is reflected in the fact that our murder and rape rates are about 4 times that of other advanced nations. When you take economic inequality and combine that with racial and ethnic discrimination, you get higher rates of violence. When it comes to violence in the media, often we see violence as a form of entertainment. We are exposed to a lot of violence, and as a result, it kind of normalizes this for us. Let's see. The organization of the family itself is related to violence because oftentimes we think that the family is separate from society and there should be privacy, which can, obscure or hide violence. Conflicts tend to arise because of an unequal power distribution in the family that's typically it's supported by society, right? By the legal system, by religion, this kind of like male dominant hierarchy that man is in charge of woman and that man and woman are in charge of children, right? And that basically, so that family itself is a power system where power is distributed unequally. Let's see. When it comes to social class and IPV, basically, just the stress of poverty can often make IPV worse. Same thing with alcohol abuse and IPV. Obviously, if you're, addicted to drugs and alcohol or something of that nature, you're not thinking clearly, and that could lead to more violence. And then intimate terrorism oh, sorry, family history of abuse. That's just basically that if you experienced abuse in childhood, you're more likely to perpetrate it, especially if you didn't get like help. Intimate terrorism is just the definition from your book. This is a type of violence that tends to escalate over time, about power and control in a relationship, that tends to be very gendered because men are, much more likely to commit this kind of violence. When it comes to why do women stay in these relationships, often it's fear of being hurt, fear of their children being hurt, hope that this person can change, love for this person, right? Self-blame, as a lot of people that are victimized tend to see themselves as the reason it's happening, because that's what abusers tell them, right? Abusers don't see their fault in anything. And often economic dependency, right? Not being able to financially leave. So when it comes to domestic violence in same-sex populations, there's some states that don't even have like specific laws about this. So this is a problem. It becomes invisible, right? When it comes to 4 types of child abuse, you have physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect. Let's see. Child abuse is child abuse in more affluent social class is more likely to be hidden, right? So you're more likely to hear about abuse in low-income families. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen in high-income families. It just means that they're better at hiding it. Sibling abuse is the most common form of family violence. When it comes to elder abuse, 5 out of 6 cases of elder abuse go unreported. So that's incredible. And basically this comes back to ageism, because ageism just means that society devalues elderly people, often stereotyping them and subjecting them to discrimination. All right, and then on to chapter 12, factors correlated with divorce. Age at first marriage, meaning the younger you are when you get married the first time, the more likely you are to get divorced. Your income is going to affect this, right? The lower your socioeconomic status, the higher probability of divorce. Interreligious couples have a higher rate of divorce than those that have the same religion. When it comes to intergenerational transmission of divorce, you have children that are from divorced families are more likely to experience divorce when they grow up than children from intact families. All right, so there's this idea of his divorce and her divorce, which cheat sheet, this is also number 2 for the short answer question. So his divorce is characterized by an improved standard of living, increased personal freedom, and personal isolation, while her divorce is characterized by personal isolation and decreased standard of living. Meaning that, and sub this in for answer 2, is that when men and women divorce, men tend to fare better. And that partially has to do with the fact that men tend to make more money than women. And women tend to get sole custody. So it makes it a lot harder for them to like date or kind of move on with their lives. Let's see, children and divorce. So the family size is going to matter, right? When it comes to remarriage, right? Oftentimes, your family size could affect whether or not you get divorced. Let's see, about a half of all marriages right now are a remarriage for one person in that couple. And again, probability of remarriage is affected by your age, your social class, your race, your religion. And basically, I'm going to ask you a couple different types of step families there, right? So I want you to know the difference between a stepfather family, a stepmother family, and a complex step family, right? I'm going to ask you about 2 of those. 2 of the 3. And then remarriage among the elderly, all you need to know there is about 500,000 people over the age of 65 remarry every year. So there's still love at that time in life. And then in regards to the business of being born, what are the filmmakers arguing about the favorability of home birth versus hospital birth? Does the fact that the filmmaker herself needs intervention and has a C-section damage the credibility of their argument? Why or why not? So this is kind of like a reaction where it's much more your opinion, so I can't really tell you what it is that you're supposed to write here. Basically, you're going to explain to me what they were talking about in the film, like what are they arguing about home birth versus hospital birth. Hint, i.e. you probably should have watched the film. If you actually sat on ass in class and watched the film, you're going to do really well on this one. And then why or why not is really you. Like, do you think it messes with their argument at all? That's your opinion. All right. And then the his or her divorce, I want you to explain, what does it mean, right? What does it mean that there's a his or her divorce? It means that men and women experience divorce differently. Okay. So how are they different? Explain how those things differ, which I just did about 45 seconds ago, right? And I want you to kind of give an example of how that affects their lives. And that's all I'm looking for there. So hopefully this is helpful. And yeah,